Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and in this video I'm going to be showing the fastest emergency vehicles around a circuit. If you want to know how all cars perform in a variety of different classes and formats, check the annotation on the screen or the link in the description for the full playlist of videos. Now, unless otherwise stated, all of the vehicles here can't be stored in your garage, upgraded or used in a race. I've tested them by recreating my testing circuit in a deathmatch and using the extra vehicles available there. So first up is just a little bit of a bonus to clear something up from the previous video. In the previous episode we looked at the commercial class of vehicles and I tested the Mule. Now the Mule that I tested in that video was the armoured version of the Mule, which was introduced with the Heists update, and it's actually much quicker than the regular version of the Mule. The regular version that you're seeing here got a lap time of 1 minute 51, whereas the armoured version got a 1 minute 44. So just something that I wanted to clear up there. The two different versions of the Mule are actually different in terms of performance. Now the bike is something that I wanted to put in first as well. Those of you who watch these videos regularly will know that I like to separate the bikes and the cars and focus more on the cars. So the police bike is technically the quickest vehicle in the emergency vehicles class with a 1 minute 11. It's basically exactly the same as a stock Sovereign. So the police bike and the Sovereign are exactly the same. And obviously because it's a bike, because you can wheelie with it, that's what gives it the quicker lap time. In terms of all of the bikes though, it's not that quick. But obviously in terms of the emergency vehicles, it is because it's a bike. So let's go on to the main countdown now. And in 11th place, we have the Prison Bus. The Prison Bus gets a lap time of 2 minutes 0.8 seconds. So not very quick. It's very strange to drive, I would say as well, in terms of it doesn't have much grip, especially in the corners, can understeer quite a lot. But having said that, it is very similar in terms of lap time to the regular bus and the Dash Hound that we saw in previous videos. So pretty well balanced, all of the buses actually. In 10th place is the Police Riot Van. Now the Riot Van is much quicker than the bus, even despite its very heavy size and appearance as well. 1 minute 42.2 isn't too bad of a lap time. It's very similar to those bigger vans that you see, in the vans class, such as the Camper and the Journey. There are now a lot of vehicles that are on that kind of 140 to 145 kind of pace. So yeah, it's not too bad of a lap time. In 9th place is the Fire Truck. Now, I tested the Fire Truck straight after testing the Prison Bus, and in comparison to that, it felt absolutely incredible that something so big could be so quick. But the 131.1 that it gets is only in 9th place for this class. Having said that, for something so big like a fire truck to be so quick, it's a very strange experience to be driving it at speed. So it's probably the quickest big vehicle that we have in the entire game. So in 8th place, just ahead of it, is the Police Transporter. Now this was a little bit more difficult to test because you can't get this in a deathmatch. So I went into a GTA race with a team of people. We got 3 stars and basically took it from the police, and that allowed me to test it in a GTA race. And that's the same with a few other vehicles that we'll see in this video. But yeah, the 130.6 that it gets is just a little bit quicker than the fire truck. Nothing major in terms of performance, but not too bad for what it is really. So in 7th place, just ahead of that, is the Ambulance. The Ambulance is the 7th best vehicle in the emergency vehicles class, and it gets a 1 minute 25.5. Not too bad of a lap time. Again, it is quite a big vehicle. Most of the vehicles here that we've seen so far have been quite large. So taking that into account, the lap time that it gets really isn't too bad at all. And yeah, there's certainly a lot worse than using the Ambulance as well. Let's put it that way. So in 6th place is the Park Ranger. Now, the next 3 vehicles that we're about to see are all very, very similar in terms of the way that they are and in terms of the lap time that they get as well, as you'll notice as we go through them. They're all based on the Granger, which is the SUV that you can use. You can transport 8 people around on the Granger. These are all based on that. They have the same body style and they are very, very similar in terms of performance. They are all very, very slightly different. When you look at the game code, there are a few slight differences between all of these cars. But ultimately, they are very, very close together in terms of performance and in terms of lap time. And it would be very similar to a stock Granger as well in terms of lap time. So, as we saw from the Park Ranger, that was a 1 minute 22.1. That you can actually use the Park Ranger in SUV races as well. The FIB SUV, as you're seeing here, is a 1 minute 21.9, so only 0.2 quicker. And then we've got the Sheriff SUV as well, which got a 1 minute 21.8. So, you know, they're all very close. They're all slightly different in a few strange ways. The Sheriff SUV is another one that we had to actually get in a GTA race by getting a wanted level and going and taking it from people. That was probably the hardest one to get as well. But yeah, they are all very similar to the Granger, and the Lifeguard that we can't actually test would be very similar as well to these. So they're all on the same sort of pace. Now the top three, and in third place is the Sheriff Cruiser. Again, this was another vehicle that we had to actually take from the cops in Blaine County when we had a wanted level, because you can't actually get it in a death match or use it in a race or anything like that. And it gets a 1 minute 18.0, you know, not too bad of a lap time. It also, you know, it's based on a Stania, which is a not too great sedan, I guess you could say. So, you know, you're not expecting it to be that great in terms of lap time. But ultimately, you know, it does a job. A 1 minute 18.0 isn't too bad of a lap time at all, and it's certainly mixing it in with some fully upgraded cars lower down the list. In second place is the FIB. This is obviously based on a Buffalo, as you can see, and it gets a 1 minute 15.7, which is actually not too bad of a lap time at all. It's pretty much exactly the same as a fully upgraded Rhapsody and a fully upgraded Blister Compact, so it sits itself into that area quite nicely. The second best emergency vehicle in the game, and yeah, it's not too bad to drive. You know, it feels quite quick. You've got to remember that none of these cars are fully upgraded either. None can get any upgrades whatsoever. They're all completely stock. So taking that into account, they're actually reasonably decent vehicles. But ultimately, there is one that is just completely blew me away with how quick it was. And it's just so much quicker than everything else. It's the Police Cruiser. Unbelievable lap time this got with a 1 minute 12.7. Now, just to put that into some kind of perspective, again, remember that this car is not upgraded in any way. It's completely stock. That is 0.2 of a second quicker than a fully upgraded Gauntlet, and only 0.1 of a second slower than a fully upgraded Monroe. That's how quick this car is. It's absolutely unbelievable. Now, there are two different versions of the Police Cruiser in addition to this one. There's one that's based on the Stania, which would get pretty much an identical lap time to what we saw from this Sheriff Cruiser earlier. And then there's one that's based on the Buffalo, which you can't get in online, that would get a very similar lap time to what we've just seen from the FIB. So both of those Police Cruisers aren't going to be on the pace of this. This one, which is generally dubbed as the Interceptor, it isn't actually based off any vehicle in game, as you know, for example, like the Buffalo or the Stania. So it is a completely, you know, unique vehicle, and it's easily the quickest. It's easily the quickest car in the emergency vehicles class. Unbelievable lap time that this gets with a 1 minute 12.7. I don't know where it gets it from, but yeah, it's if you're in free roam and you've got no other cars to choose except a few cop cars hanging around, you could certainly do a lot worse than this. So there we have it. Those are the top emergency vehicles in the game. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think this is one that a lot of people were hoping to see. There were 4 vehicles in the emergencies class that I've kind of mentioned that weren't possible to be tested. There's the 2 different versions of the Police Cruiser that would have been slower, and there's also the unmarked Cruiser, which would have been on the same pace as the Sheriff Cruiser as well. And then obviously the Lifeguard that I mentioned earlier. So 4 different vehicles, but they would have all been very similar to what we've already seen in this class, and none of them would have been able to beat the Interceptor version of the Police Cruiser. So yeah, incredible there, and it's amazing that the last car that we've seen in this sort of mini series of cars that you can't race and you can't upgrade was the quickest of all of them, and it was such a good performance from it. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this kind of mini series of vehicles that can't normally be tested. And yeah, thank you for all of your support. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to check the playlist for, you know, other videos in this series, and subscribe if you're new and all that kind of stuff. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.